to know me, I'm Fred Kinney, and this is Peter Kinney. We're Kristen's son. And anyway, we wanted to sort of do just a couple of remarks to, and then call a couple of people who are going to speak, and then kind of do an open mic. We don't really need a mic here. I think it's small enough that you can hear everyone, but same idea. Let me see, because you know what? It's always good with program. So the first thing we have is, you want to hit it?
No, you guys, do you have more to say?
Well, you know what? Not a whole lot. I mean, honestly, you know, people who knew Chris knew her well, you know, and you just keep me in frame. You know, people who knew Chris well, and as you can see from the photographs there, about a third of them had a drink in hand. I think a lot of it, you know, is the Irish tradition. You know, during the late 80s, early 90s, she was a big supporter of the Sinn Féin, and economically, you know. And I think that, you know, even though she obviously grew up in America and whatnot, but I think she sort of had felt like a certain Irish tradition, and that's why she did say she wanted to have a wake. Yeah. And, you know, so anyway, everybody, I guess, just lift a glass if you have one, okay? And think of this, ready? This is like an old Irish proverb. Two of them. The first one is, may you be in heaven for a full half hour before the devil knows you're dead. And the second one, which is similar but slightly different, and I saw at the Shandon Star back in the late 80s, early 90s in New York, was for an Irishman, there's only two things. You're either well or you're sick. If you're well, then you're fine. If you're sick, there's two options. You either get better or you die. If you get better, you get better. If you die, there's two options. You go to heaven, and you're in heaven, no worries. If you go to hell, no big deal. You're not going to notice it for at least a couple hours where you're shaking all your friends' hands. Chris Kinney. Shot they and Laura.
Okay. She requested.
Storyblocks Audio. 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 Storybox 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 Audio.
That we thought was appropriate for Chris Kinney, even though she called herself a reformed Catholic. And I think many times some are going to agnostic, but in this case, I think this might apply.
The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right path for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest of valleys, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will forever dwell with you, and I will forever dwell in the house of the Lord.
Next, we have two people who've known Nunn for a really long time that we're going to speak. Tensha Kaiser. Tensha, come on up. So, Tensha Kaiser was a teacher with my mom at AC Nunn for a really long time, right?
Oh, Falk Elementary?
That's right. Was it Falk Elementary or middle school? Elementary, Falk Elementary. And yeah, then you know her for like, what, probably 50 years?
Yeah,
For a really long time.
since God made her green apples. But, well, we know she had an accident, so this is kind of a joke. I heard it today. So this boy was riding on a plane to Boston, and he turns to his mother and he says, "Mama, there's the kid who's there." And she says, "Well, sort of." But Chris was telling me one time, and I can't remember who the teacher was. When she first started teaching, she was subbing, and she took this class with this teacher, and she gave the kids a spelling test. It was her 5 minute, and the next time she saw the teacher said, "All my kids run for spelling tests." And Chris said, "No." And she said, "Every one of them." She said, "No." One of the kids, one of the boys said, "Yes, ma'am, we didn't know any of those words." So anyway, that's my story back there, and one more, and that is just, we all know how amazing she was. No matter where she went all over the world, in the little envelope, she would always send me a souvenir from wherever. And I was just always amazed. It might be a rosary, a holy card, a bookmark, postcard. I don't know. She just always sent me something wherever she was. She was just a sweet soul, and I still miss her.
And Deb Ripper. Deb, come on down. So Deb, I mean, I know you've been on for longer than I have. You know, whatever you want to share with the people.
Myself, my brother and sister, our kids, and we met Chris in 1967. That's why we were You can do it. Anyway, my dad always tells the story of Chris the first time we met her. She rolled up in a Volkswagen Bug. We jumped out, tails, lollipops. She was a car too back then. My brother tells the story of her. We had a swimming pool in a creek that we always went to. This is in upstate New York, dairyland. This was in a farmer's dairy pasture. They ran through it. It had a bridge. We would jump off the bridge. Chris, go to the metal bridge, up to the top of the bridge, jumping off. Now, there was a little room for error. Get off there. But she did that. That's as adventurous as the woman was. You see some of her pictures of her wedding. a chocolate cake, chocolate frosting, white trim. She had a bouquet, white flowers, black roses. It was her kind of way of rebelling against her mom. We wanted her to have the church wedding. It's okay, Mom, I'll have the church wedding. But I'm going to have what I want at my wedding. And it was a great one. Other stories I could tell. I moved down here in '79 to go to school up in Greenville. Chris and Unc would come up and give me once a month, right after commissary shopping. And that's what I lived on. 2 years. Canned beans, ranch beans, of course. Pete's favorite. And a $20 bill when I got on the car back up to school at Reno. That was my Sonic money because I could walk up to there. But anyway, we went on several trips, Fritz and I. We went skiing once up at Jackson Hole. We went with one of her teacher friends. And I'm sorry I don't remember her name, but we decided the first day we were there, we were going to go right up to Yellowstone Park because we couldn't get into our condo yet. We got up there, snow of course. When you go into the park or the entrance to it, you drive over part of the Yellowstone Lake. Gentlemen were out there ice fishing. I guess her friend had never seen me ice fish before. Stops the car, walks all the way out, snow on his feet, to this gentleman, talks to him, he goes back in the car, and we said, what did we say? She wanted to know what kind of fish he was catching. And he said, when I asked him, he said fish. So we proceeded to drive because we wanted to see their beautiful log cabin, beautiful houses up there. We were being kind of nosy. Before ringing doorbells, we would go, we were going, looking at houses, getting out of the car, getting up on the porch, picking windows, checking it out. And the one house we stopped at, we got about 10 feet away from the car, and we heard, "Grr." We turned, there was a moose right there. Got back in the car, that was the end of our nosiness. For sure, the end of our nosiness. Trying to remember my other stories I'm telling you guys. So, Chris loved the water, she loved the beach. Her husband, her father, didn't want anything to do with the water, didn't want anything to do with the beach. So when I would come down to visit, we always went to the beach, always at the end or at the water pool, played with the kids. Later years, we would come and sit in one of those publics up, just chasing the shade around, sitting there talking, maybe just talking. She'd always bring a book, but really didn't get anything read. Talking and snacking and reading. This is what we did. And one year when I came down, when I was still in college, it was Memorial Day weekend. Chris decided we were going to go camp on the beach in Puerto Rico. She borrowed bed, sleeping bags from somebody. I don't know where she got all that stuff from. We went. We came home as soon as the sun came out. It was like the worst night of our life. Between the sunburn for being in the water and out in the sun all day, the heat, we had to leave the flies open to keep breeze coming through, and the sand just fell on all night. All night. Needless to say, when we got home, the person who had the biggest smile on his face was their dad. Going to the beach to do whatever. But yeah, we had awesome times together. That's cool.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was, oh yeah, there's sand everywhere.
And I think that was the time we went and Fred got caught. He said he got caught in the riptide, but I think you just played it and you just lost track of where we were because there were so many people. And Chris was just beside herself trying to find it. He was way watching. Like, what's wrong? Well, you've been gone for like an hour. You remember that?
Yeah, no, I got caught in a riptide. It's crazy. It's crazy as shit. But it's totally true. So I got caught in a riptide. This is back, this is like in the early 80s.
Yeah.
So what happened was this riptide took and it sucked me all the way to Cuba. So I was in Cuba and I thought what I would do is be a patriot and burn down Castro's fields for one cigar at a time. There you go. You're Ronald Reagan.
Now you know
Yeah.
where it comes from. It's bad.
Should we do the next song?
If there's anyone who would like to, you know, I'm gonna make an audible and call Mike. Where is Mike? Mike Kinney, why don't you come up and just say a couple words about my mom? I know it's gonna be hard, but you know
Tell him,
what?
explain that he's not related to you.
No, well, he might be, he might not be. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I mean,
I guess if Chris had an illegitimate kid, I'd be in.
we're like from the same county.
Yeah.
There, believe it or not, there was a mayor of Jersey City. This is where Mike is from, Jersey City. Frank Kinney, who was like
He was related.
but his name is spelled like my name. But yet Kenny, Mike's name is spelled differently. But in Ireland, both names actually derived because they were from the original like Gaelic spelling. So they, you know, kind of like if somebody comes here to America now and they change it from Farsi, you know, yeah. So literally the name is said the same, you know, it's spelled differently. So right, no direct relation that we know of, but Mike Kinney, who I met in Jersey City, I don't know what, 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Oh, it's
A
got
long time ago.
I got kids over.
25.
I'm guessing I said I met Fred in '95. Pete moved up for a summer. My siblings used to pick on Pete and say, at the time the commercial was out, it was popular, and the school bus left without little Pete. I was little brother. Quick joke. What's the difference between a Yankee and a damn Yankee? A damn Yankee brings a U-Haul. Chris and I both did that. I always tease. I met Fred. I came here. I met Chris, and then wound up staying with Pete and Jimmy. Yeah, for me, it was a rebirth. It's still hard for me. Chris was like my adopted Texas mom, is what I call her all the time. One day when my son was little, before you had kids, my son reached out to Chris and said, "Hey, Grandma." I was like, "Oh shit, Fred didn't get that chance first. What do I say?" Chris being quick when she was saying, "It's all right, just call me Miss Chris." We walked on like that never happened. What can I say about Chris, man? I admire the same quality about my brother. You had to be careful what you asked Chris. But she was going to tell you the truth, whether you liked it or not. I always admired that quality about her. I can go on and on with stories. I'll share like one of my favorite things. I've shared it with you. I'm going to use a curse word. Most of you used to. We were talking about religion one time. Catholic, right? Chris, Catholic,
Chris grew up Catholic.
So very
much like her grandmother.
Yeah.
Like my grandmother, her mother was definitely a true believer. Like a true believer.
So Chris kind of had a spin on it. I'd agree with you. So we're sitting there, Chris being Chris, right? So we're sitting there one night talking. I stayed with Chris for a while. I stayed with Pete, Fred, James. Formative years of my first time here. So I'm there with just me and her one night, just sitting around kicking it, like two friends. That was Chris was many things to me. Friend, sometimes a father figure, mom, confidant, critic. She covered many boundaries. But I'll go with this one. We were sitting there talking about being Catholic, and I said, you know, Chris, in Catholicism it says turn the other cheek. She says, yeah, I got 4, and after that, be a fuck. That's the correct quote. I don't know that was from that long. Like we had that relationship. You know what I mean? Chris, what can I say? She keep in touch with my kids through text. Shared books. I'm sitting at the table, Chris had made her rounds, I made the list, I'm proud to be on that list, I still am. I miss her very much. Like I said, I feel like I lost a friend, a mother, many things. Again, thank you all very much. I'm sorry for your loss. I think you all, and we're all here for one reason. For Chris, I would anticipate this. If Chris knew you and you're here for her, I'd probably like you too, whether you like me or not. I'd also like to say it's because of you I know a group of men in this room, and I want to say thank you, all of you skeptics here. These know who you are. Thanks for everything. Everything. Thanks for the opportunity, buddy. Seriously. I love my mom and dad, and I miss her. For being so fresh. Thank you all for showing up, right? Cheers to Chris, like I said. I think your estimate was wrong. I probably got 60% of my pictures got Chris at the bottom of something.
There's a lot, yeah. True.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. If you don't know, she referred to me as Jersey money. Okay.
You might have ate at a sandwich shop.
I wish. I wish.
Does anybody else want to say anything? Any remembrances about Chris? You know? Billy? Wait, hold on.
Oh, yeah. You're gonna say
Oh, Brenda?
Okay, Brenda, I'm not quite sure I can do this.
Do the best you can.
When I met Chris, his dad was very young. You were a figment of her imagination because I never saw you anywhere, anytime. I met you when I brought home one night at the party down here on the beach. We rolled around the car, got in the house, remember that?
Yeah. I thought she was sick. I didn't really know anything about
She
her.
was. We wanted to dance around this down there, by the way. Anyway, I remember her right. I went to work for her and just Chris was my prison advisor, I was librarian. She invited me to a book concert. We get up there in Huntsville, it's snowing, believe it or not. And I ran as fast, all of it was cheap. We got one way to work there. So we're climbing to bed, she's over there with like pajamas, a robe, a little hat. And Slim, I said, you're wearing all that to bed? She goes, yeah, look how long your nights, oh my God. But after that, we were the best friends. She wouldn't let me do anything alone. She was always there for me, late side of after all the time, for things back in middle life. She would give me middle life, whatever. We traveled from, after I moved back to Mississippi, back to my mom, she was still coming down, and we still traveled. This necklace that I keep today, we got it. She was my friend, my boss, my co-worker, then my best friend, and then my sister. And so I did not forget to call it up, but thanks guys, y'all do it proud.
You want to say something? Oh, come on.
I've never told anybody this. Well, my name's Carly, and I'm Mike's daughter. I've never told anybody this, but Chris was actually the person who gave me my first sip of beer. My dad mentioned that my mother called her our grandmother. She wasn't actually our grandmother, but she was in so many ways. And for a long time, she was more like Santa Claus. We would come home from school one day and there'd be a package that was labeled from Miss Christina Dixon, and we'd know, there were books for me and my brother, my little sister, and we would just devour them. And she would text and see what we wanted to read and what we were into. And she really gave us the opportunity to become lifelong readers and learners. And she's a librarian, then she's a librarian first. We have the great privilege of seeing her in December of 23, where she met my fiance, who is a librarian, and she told me that the world is changing and that we have to keep learning with it. And that has really stuck with me since. And I think that that's what Miss Chris would have wanted us to take from today.
Yay.
It was always about books.
Absolutely.
Always. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Come on, Becky.
Fred, before Becky, her friend's here wants to talk also.
Oh, wait. Wait, who is?
Let her.
Wait, who want to talk?
Yeah. Go ahead, standing up.
Oh, yeah. Come on down.
Can I just stand here?
Sure.
I talk loud. I talk in the gym all my life. So, we talked with Chris, all of us here at this table,
And Valerie and I and Brenda and Deborah, did you go skiing with us too?
Yep.
Yeah.
What?
We made many ski trips with Chris, and we really enjoyed her. She was always the life of the party and always upbeat, and we had so much fun with her. But we went on this one trip to Austria, and Valerie and I were skiing with Chris. We had been skiing all day up and down, and then it was the end of the day, and we were coming back, and so we came to this one area, and it was just almost straight down. And we said, well, we're just going to go down that way, and Chris was like, I don't know about going down that. So we said, well, maybe if you go around this way, you'll catch us here. Well, so we went on down. She went that way. We got down. We never found Chris. Where's Chris? Where did she go? And we waited. We went all the way back to where we were staying. We couldn't find Chris. We came all the way back to the place where we knew she left her boots, so she had to come back there. No Chris. So we're walking back, and all of a sudden here we see little Chris coming with her skis. And when you ski in Europe, as you come to certain places, it takes you off to different villages. So she skied all the way off to some other village. And coming down, as she was coming down, she came down to a slope where it was kind of steep, and she says, I looked at that, I just took those skis and took them off, sat on my arse, and she said, and there was like a little place there where people were sitting outside, and they all like, they all clapped for her. She came down. That was a fun time.
So this is Becky, Lori, my wife's sister.
Okay, that was the same friend, my sister. So I've known Chris for all these years since you guys got together, and I think of Chris Dixon every time I spill something. Every time I spill something. Because Chris at some point said, oh, whenever you spill something, just look at it as an opportunity to clean up. And it just really my life. I mean, it's really interesting because if you do that, it really makes spilling something less upsetting. So that's one of the things I do, Chris.
That's great. All right, is there anybody else who wants to say? Oh, nice.
So I worked at the middle school with all these ladies, and Chris was the librarian, so she traveled around. Well, I graduated from Maria's class, and my mom had worked here. She was a school nurse for 37 years. So I was talking about this lady I worked with. She's like, I know Chris. She's like, and she says, she had this yellow car. She says, Chris, why in the world did you get that bright yellow car? She says, so I can find it in the parking lot.
That's right. She used to have a yellow, it was an Escort, wasn't it?
A Ford Escort.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. All right. And any other one? Anything else want to say something? I mean, I might look at somebody and call someone out like Kyle. Kyle, come on down. All right. Thank you, Kyle. So Kyle Loki is someone that my brother has known for many years, and that I knew he was a friend of my brother, but at least since what's grade for? Like 6th grade, 8th grade?
Yeah, I think middle school everybody's.
So like a really long time, like we're looking back at like maybe even like the late Carter administration.
Here's what I'm going to say about Chris. Like all of us as people, we end up we're all raised by a village, right? And she took a whole bunch of, like Mike said, a bunch of guys in here and her house. She let us eat the food that was there. She let us hang out there. She wasn't judgmental. I don't know how she kept her sanity while we were in high school because there were fire trucks, there were police, there was all kinds of stuff going on. We broke her stuff and she still loved us. We ate all the food in her fridge and she still loved us. And then when we got to be adults, she still loved us. And then when we had children, she treated all of our children like they were her own grandchildren. So, what an example, you know.
Couldn't have said it any better, Carl.
Yeah.